guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about drift fishing. This is great for salmon, steelhead, trout. I imagine that you could definitely use it for fishing for, well, basically any type of fish in a river. But ideally we're going to be focusing on salmon, trout, and steelhead today. Um, so let's get started. First we're going to start out with the first step here, which is your hook. Okay, so the hook that we're going to be using today this is a Gamakatsu 2-aught octopus hook with an offset shank. These are fantastic hooks. This one's barbless because a couple of the majority of the rivers I fish for salmon are barbless only and blah blah blah, and it's what I've already got in my box. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off. We've got our little piece of leader line here. I know you guys can't really see this that well. I tried to use something that was dark color because this line is Maxima Chameleon, so it's red. So we're going to go ahead and throw our line through there. Just get it to like the back of the shank. Right about, you guys aren't going to really be able to see that. But anyway, so the line, you take it till it's about right where the hook starts to curve, and you're going to wrap around. You're going to hold the line first of all, not like what I just did. Poke it back through that hole, back through there, pinch it with your fingers, wrap around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. I like to go 7. Sometimes I go 8, sometimes I just stay at 7. So when you get to 7, okay, you're going to hold that line with your 2 fingers, just like that. This is the easiest way, I think, to do it. Take it with your other hand, pinch it, hold it, so you can still see that eyelet. Then you're going to take the other end of your leader line here, and you're going to just poke it right back through that hole. Now, for this part, I would recommend leaving like 3-4 inches, but I don't have a whole lot of line here today because this is a short little piece of leader line that I just used to shoot the last video. So you're going to pinch it right back where you had your hand before, and you want to get that line down low right on that shank, and then you're just going to go back around 7 or 8 more times. Just wrap it around. Okay, when you get your 7 wraps, you're going to go back, you're going to choke up on it a little bit, pinch it, hold it, wet it. Just use your mouth. Just don't hook yourself. And when you pull that through, usually when I'm doing like a big long leader, I will hold it in my mouth. That way I can get the whole line wet. And then you're just going to pull it through. Be mindful of that hook because you don't want the line to, well, nick on the hook because then the leader's worthless. Just pull it through, get the little loop there at the end, and cinch it up, and bam. There's your egg loop. So, what makes this an egg loop is that you can push it back through that eye, and you get your loop. Now, for this loop, you can put all kinds of things in there. You can put a piece of shrimp in there, just like a little body portion of it, and just pull it right down on it. Okay? Or you can get some yarn, which I've got right here. Now, I like to use, well, I have every color of yarn really, because, you know, you don't know until you try. So I've got all kinds of colors. I usually try to stick to like more natural colors for my yarn. So today we're going to try to make it look like a skein of an egg sac for like a salmon or a steelhead. So I really like this silly, sparkly, glow UV yarn. I don't know if it really makes a difference, but I really feel like it makes a difference. And confidence sometimes that's half the battle sometimes. So like what I like to do is I'll take like 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches little piece of red. And then let's grab some of this pink. I don't know what brand this pink is. It's just kind of, its bag's falling apart a while ago. Oh, that's some nice orange. Yeah, I like this pink better. So we're going to go with this pink. So with the second piece of pink, because I want it to make it look like a skein, what we're going to do is we're going to cut off about 2.5 inches. Okay? So we got our pink. We got our nice glittery red. So we're going to set that red pretty even on that pink, just like that. And we'll go back. We got our big egg loop here on our hook. So we're going to push that out a little bit more. Just enough so it's easy for us to get our yarn through. Put it on. Get it pretty even. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be perfect-ish. So perfect-ish is better than not trying at all. Then you just pull this down. Okay? Now you're thinking to yourself, Chris, that looks really stupid. Like, fish are dumb, but they're not going to fall for that. And you're right. They are dumb. I mean, they would probably fall for that, but what we're going to do is we're going to fluff up that yarn. Okay? We're just going to pull it apart, both pieces. We're just going to pull it apart, fluff it up really good. Okay? So I just kind of pull that out, make it look nice. Fluff out the other side too. And bam, look at that. One side of this yarn is much better than the other side of that yarn. I don't know why this side doesn't quite fluff out the same. Anyway, so then you get that. Okay? That looks pretty good. Okay? And the big part of the reason why I like using yarn, even if I was going to use eggs, I would still put a little bit of yarn on it for a couple reasons. One, salmon, steelhead, and trout, they have pointy teeth. Okay? And a lot of times I'm using a barbless hook. Alright? So the yarn, when they go to bite into it, one, it helps hide the hook on the initial bite. Two, it gets tangled in their teeth, so if I miss that initial bite, like by just a little bit, I have a higher likelihood of keeping this hook in that fish's mouth this much longer. And this much longer makes a huge difference in the world. Okay? So, we've got our hook, we've got our yarn, looks super nice. Let's move on to what we should do with this leader. Okay? What are we going to do with this weight? So, what I like to use are, they're called slinkies, okay? So, essentially what this is it's lead balls shoved into a piece of paracord, and you melt the ends and squish them with a pair of pliers. It's like I think this, because they make a kit for it too. You can buy these individually, but you're going to go through quite a bit of money pretty quickly. Plus, with buying the kit to make your own, I think the kit's $20. Because it comes with the tube and the ramrod for the tube, pushing the paracord. They don't give you pliers to squish it. They don't give you a heat source to melt it. So I just use a torch and a pair of pliers to make these. And then you can make these in any size that you want, and you can go as big as you want, small as you want, whatever, so you can carry a huge pile of like options. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna find a good swivel here. Actually, hey, we'll just use this one because this swivel is unbelievably big, so it'll be easy for you guys to see exactly what we're gonna do here. And we'll use this big slinky. So, most of you guys, if you're watching this video, you probably haven't drift fished before. But you have probably used a swivel before. So you know, you got your swivel, your snap swivel here. And you got your snap. You normally tie this end onto your main line and then this goes to your lure or whatever else you're putting on the end of it, right? For drift fishing, what I do is the opposite. My screen turned off. There we go. We're going to do the opposite. So we're actually going to take this leader line here, and we're going to tie it to where you would normally tie your main line. Just like that. I'm going to do a double overhand because I use a double overhand for like a 900 different, for basically everything. I use a double overhand. You can use pretty much whatever knot that you want, but I would recommend just using a knot that you're super satisfied with. Wet it so we don't burn it. There we go. Bam! Look at that. So, now you're wondering, why are we talking about the slinky? What are we going to do with this slinky? Well, what we're going to do with that slinky is, we are going to just bend that snap swivel part out, just like that, and just kind of, I like to use these locking ones because they got that little extra hook. I feel like it helps with keeping it on there, because I've had regular, the straight swivels. Maybe I still have one in here. Just a regular, like, typical style swivel where it just flips under there. I've had those actually pull out because this part of the slinky, this is actually what's making your full bottom contact and holding it on the bottom of the river, so it's hitting all the rocks the whole time. So while the slinky's pretty good at not snagging on anything, and that's a huge bonus for the slinky versus like your piece of lead, okay, because you can just use a piece of lead and a surgical hose and just throw that on there and go that way. I don't know why I did this on this one, but this isn't how you normally do this. But we'll talk about that later. So, you've got your weight, you've got your swivel, your snap swivel, you got your leader, and you got your hook and your wonderful yarn. So, I'm just going to tie this piece of this on here to represent my main line. So the difference between regular lead, using a regular piece of lead, or like something like a cannonball, which is just a round sinker, for drift fishing is these two tend to hang up more often, but traditionally speaking, you get a better feel out of doing it this way, because this has some deadness to it, because it's a piece of paracord with a bunch of little pieces of lead balls inside there, and it kind of deadens the feeling of it. Now, that's completely true unless you use a braid mainline, which I do. And so I have tons of bottom feel, even with the slinky. Because most people are like, oh, I hate slinkies, you can't feel the bottom. You gotta use a surgical hose and a giant chunk of lead. My fishing buddy is one of those guys. I kind of pick on him. I got him to use braid one time, and he's like, oh wow, the feeling on this is incredible. And he was still using lead. He's like, now I know why you have so much luck. Blah, blah, blah. He fishes right next to me. He catches just as many fish as I do, but he says I have really good luck. Whatever. So, you're going to tie your main line. This is the line that goes to your reel. I use braid main line, okay, but I'm using this piece of fluorocarbon here as an example. So, this is essentially your completed setup. Now, with your yarn, what's really cool about using the yarn, other than the fact that it helps you with that hookup, with it getting tangled in their teeth, you can also put scented gels, or you can put oils in this that give it an added extra scent, so it goes that extra mile. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is essentially the idea here. Except for I forgot the really important part, so I'm going to cut this off real quick. Because I completely forgot to even tell you guys about the next fun step. Oh, why won't this shut? There we go. Which is the corkies. Which are as, well, they're not cork anymore. If you get cork ones, don't use them, because like the cork ones, I think are actually, some of them are actually worth quite a bit of money. So, because we're going with a natural color here, we're going to go ahead and grab, I like this one. It's supposed to look like an egg sac, but it's corky. And then I usually like to pair that with one of these slightly smaller ones. Okay, like let's go with this chromy red and white guy here. These are pretty awesome. But then you've got different ones. These ones glow in the dark. Then you've got your green ones, which you use different colors for different situations. Some rivers, the color of your corky completely changes everything. Some rivers, you don't even use yarn on it because they won't hit anything with yarn on it. I've been in fisheries where you don't use anything except for a bare hook. Fish are weird, guys. Fish are weird. So, we're going to take our corkies, put them on there like that, and they are just going to free float, just like that. You don't have to put a stopper on it, anything like that. You can peg them if you want to. A lot of guys do that. I don't, because 99% of the time, the current does the job for me, and those corkies are only going to float so far before they're going to hit that hook anyway. So, yeah, that's just kind of what that deal is. Tie our back onto our swivel here. So we are 100% complete now. Main line to the clip side of that snap swivel with our slinky, onto the swivel, down our leader, to our corkies, our yarn, and our hook. And we could put eggs on here instead of yarn. We could put sand shrimp on here if we wanted to. We could put anything we want on here. Just check your local regs. And as far as your hook goes, you might be limited to a different size, or limited to barbless, or it doesn't matter. They would let you throw a treble hook out there because they don't care. But we're gonna make this pretty standard Washington type here. You know, number 2 octopus hook, barbless, no live bait. You could put a scent on this very easily and just squirt that gel right into the center of that, and it is going to hold it a very long time. Oil scents are great, but you have to reapply them quite often. The gel, you just take that bottle, you shove it right down on there, and you just squeeze it till it starts to come out around the tip of the bottle. I found is the appropriate amount, and that will stay on there all day long, and it'll keep producing scent a long time. You'll probably snap this off before that scent runs out, or you're just gonna go home. I'll be completely honest with you. So, let me grab the water. We got our river. Okay. I'm gonna shorten this up just a hair. I didn't think about that when I tied that. Our river I got here is a little shallower than our setup. So typically, with your leader, you're going to want to make this thing, it's going to depend on how deep your water is and how strong your current is, because your corkies and yarn and everything else is going to be floating quite a ways behind behind your weight. So you're going to kind of have to, wow, that's still kind of too long. Here, we'll just tie it another knot-ish in the middle of it. There. Okay, that should work. Tie up. Use up some of that line. Man, I've used leaders anywhere between, I'd say the shortest I've ever used was about 3 foot, and that was to hold it pretty close to bottom. And I've used 5-6 foot long leaders just because it was a fairly fast current, and I wanted to get it pretty far behind my weight. So we got our setup, and let's go ahead and cast it out there. And our leader line's still a little bit too long, so we'll just tie another knot in this, just to kind of shorten this up a little bit here. There we go. Okay, try it again. Okay, there we go. So, show you what we got going on here. Move the camera up. So your weight goes to the bottom. Alright, you're imagining the current. This is floating because those corkies float, and that yarn doesn't really do anything except for have an appearance. Okay? So this, the idea for your amount of weight is going to depend on how fast the current is. The faster the current is, the more weight you're going to want, so you can slow that presentation down as it's going through the water. Bump you guys back down a little bit. So this is your base setup that you want to be using out there. And as this moves through the water, bouncing and jerking, this being pulled by the current and by the movement of your weight is going to give you this kind of action as it's just bouncing down the river. Salmon, steelhead, trout, whatever, they're going to hit this. You can downsize this for trout. You can upsize this. Well, this is pretty much the standard big size for drift fishing. And this is what you do. And you just keep an eye on your line and your pole the whole time. So when you cast out, you're going to keep it tight. So you're going to cast and then reel up a little bit till it gets taut, and then you'll be able to feel it in your rod and watch it on your tip as this thing bounces down. So you'll be able to follow it. Now, when the fish strike it, that's going to be, it's kind of a, because after you're fishing for a while, you're going to get the idea of what the bottom's going to feel like, okay? Now, anytime that you feel anything different, because salmon won't always just like smash it and dart back. They're not going to do that, okay? They're going upriver. You're drifting downriver, okay? So most likely with salmon, what you're going to feel is, well, the lack of tautness on your line, and that no more feeling of bottom contact. Now, when you're in sand, you're not going to have a lot of bottom contact. Ideally, you want to be on gravel or rock so you can feel that thump as it's moving down. Sand, it gets a little bit tricky. Now, when you're fishing for something like a trout or a steelhead, when they snatch at it, steelhead, they might just snatch at it and swim like 2 feet over and spit it out. They're super finicky, especially when it comes to drift fishing, in my experience. Trout have a kind of a tendency to hit and run. So they might hit that and take off upstream. They might hit that, take off downstream. They might hit that and go straight across. So you just kind of have to feel it, because you're not going to be able to see it. There's no float here. There's nothing like that. But that's kind of, any difference in what you feel is an indication of a bite. Now, a couple things that you have to watch out for is you don't want to just set the hook all the time, okay? Because especially during the salmon season, because there's so many in the rivers, you'll feel them bumping your line with their backs. It sounds stupid. It really does. I didn't really believe it when I first started salmon fishing, but you will feel them with their backs hitting your line every once in a while. Um, and you don't want to just stand there setting the hook constantly, because that's called snagging slash flossing, and that's, well, not really flossing, but that's pretty. You can't do that. That's illegal. We have anti-snagging rules for a reason. Um, yeah, don't do that. But you will feel that, and they'll run into your legs too. Um, but yeah, this is drift fishing. This is basic 101. You know, if you live, let's say you live in Arizona, and you want to come up here for a drift fishing season, but you're not going to do a guide, or salmon season, and you don't want to do a guide, and you're like, oh, I want to try drift fishing. This is your basic setup. So you want your size appropriate hook for the regulations, which typically here in Washington is a 2/0, and a lot of our rivers over here, depending on which ones you go to, are barbless. Plus, you have to keep an eye on which days it's actually open. Then you have to keep an eye for Anyway, there's a bunch of rules. Do your research on the rules of the water that you're planning on going to. Okay? So, get your standard hook size, what you need to do, because you can order that online anywhere. That's not a big deal. The corkies themselves, you can order those online anywhere. It's not really, oh, there's a specific, I don't even know what brand these corkies are. These are the ones that are in the bin when I go to Sportco or Bass Pro, or there's no name, so I couldn't give you a name here, but I would recommend the Gamakatsu hooks. And the yarn, I think the only yarn that I know the name of is the yarn that's actually still in the bag. These are from the Bug Shop in Anderson, California. Here's all the information. There's their phone number if you want to call them up. Um, I really like this yarn. Um, Deep dark red. But yeah, just get your variety pack of yarn. Get your purples. Get your pinks. Get your oranges. Get your greens. Get a multi-pack. Like, this is from Atlas Mike's Glow yarn. Once again, this is UV enhanced. I really honestly cannot tell you if UV enhanced line helps or yarn helps. It can't hurt. I like this because it's got like the little glitter in it. It gives me confidence that it's throwing light, even though I know for a fact it is not actually throwing light in the water that the fish are probably going to care about, because they're seeing this and they're like, oh, I hate everybody else's egg sacs. That's what that is. Instead of the corkies, you guys can also always use the soft beads. It's the same idea. You put them up there, and then you're going to peg these. Same exact idea as the corkies. Now, for storage, a lot of guys will have the like pieces of foam that they just wrap their leaders around. That's fine. That's cool. That works great. I did that for a while, and then I got these. These are called pips. This one is made by Max Lure, actually. These are great. So how this works is here. I'll just pull a leader out. As I said, I normally run a pretty long leader on my stuff. Go back in there. Sometimes they get a little dumb. And one thing I really like about the Max Pips, oh, this isn't one of my new ones. This is one of my old ones. Oh, okay. These all... Okay. Over the weekend, somebody messed with my leaders. Alright, that's fine. No big deal. So yeah. You're going to only turn your pips one direction, and do not let your friends mess with your pips, because if they turn it the wrong way, then all of your leaders get tangled. That's the downside of these. If it turns the wrong way, then you're like screwed. But so you have your hooks, and then all you're going to do is you're going to, if I can get my hook, there we go. There we go. So you're just going to take your hook, you're going to put it right in there just like that. Take your pip blade, it's got a little marker in there. Make sure your notches are lined up. Make sure your notches are lined up always. And you're just going to turn it clockwise. Always only clockwise. If you ever give your pips to somebody, and they turn that thing counterclockwise, and only one of you comes home from the river, that is probably, that you probably won't go to jail for that if your judge is a fisherman. And bam. Nice, neat, and tight. And then you just grab your next leader after you figure out what you did with the other end of it. Take that hook. This is the owner hook I was talking about before. You just throw that in there. Fisherman, that's a wacky hook. Offset. Turn that thing. You just keep turning clockwise. Line up your notches. See, there's your indicator notch. There's your notches on the side. Turn that even. Bam! Okay. So, the big advantage of this over like a pool noodle section and wrapping your line around it, I feel like this is smaller. Can this screw up and ruin your day? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But the upside to this is, versus your pool noodle, is you can't accidentally nick your leaders because they're in there. I mean, you could nick it pulling it out if you weren't paying attention and being safe about it, but that's not the point. Now, for like your corkies and everything, go pick up one of these double-sided boxes. These are like $5, and they are fantastic, and they fit right in your vest pocket. And they have the little organizers in them and all that stuff, and you just put all your stuff in there, and it works great. Okay, and then for your yarn, use your highly sophisticated Ziploc bag. I recommend the quart. It works great because it's yarn, and you want to keep it somewhat nice, but you don't have to carry that much, and you're not putting yarn in a box. Like, it's yarn. You can't hurt it really, and it can't hurt you really. But yeah, this is your typical drifting setup. Now, as far as like your pole goes, you definitely want to have something like at least 8 foot. A lot of people say 8'6" or 9 foot. I'm not saying that you can't do it with 7 foot, because I've done it. It's just about you're throwing a long piece of not a lot of weight, so you need all the help you can get to get that across the river. And if your river's not that wide, it's not that crucial, but I would definitely recommend 8'6" or 9 foot. My drifting setup is 8 foot. I have an 8'6" bait casting setup, and I have a 9 foot spinning setup. And I'll be completely honest, I love the spinning setup a lot more because I can throw a lot lighter weight on it much easier. As far as your reel size, stay above a 3000. Um, my current setup is a 3500. Before that, I ran a 4000, and I ran a 6500 series reel on it. Um, because I found one that was cheap and my current reel at the time was done for. So I did do that. It's not that big of a deal. Just bigger than 3000 because you do want the drag and you do want the line capacity. Because if you get one that's just going to tear off downriver on you, the last thing you want is to get spooled. Because getting spooled with something, let's just say 8 to 40 pounds, is not ideal. But yeah, this is your like real good. This is your basic, your introduction level kit, and this is your pro drift fishing kit. Okay. Um, that once you get into it, you'll find out that it is cheap, it is effective, and it is versatile, and it is easy to transport because this is all you need. This is it. I mean, you can add scents. It's cool. You don't have to. A lot of times, I don't use scents at all. Um, you can add all kinds of different things. I mean, I would show you guys how the spinning glows work, but I don't actually have current. But you can even get corkies with little wings on them like these. Okay, you throw them on your leader line, and they just, when it's sitting in that water, you put a tiny little bead behind it, and it just spins and attracts fish. You get these normal colors. You get them little chromy wings. You can get them with little, little fancy wings. You can get them with bare wings, just to give a little bit more action. Yeah, dude, it all works good. It all works good. It's gonna depend on your conditions, your colors that are gonna work best for you, and what you figure out on your river. If you go to the store that's relatively close to the rivers that you want to fish, and you've already gone in, you've already got all your corkies, go into the store like the Friday before your fishing trip. Take a look what's sold out. Okay? If you walk in there and all of the green corkies are sold out and all of, let's say, like purple yarn, that is gone. Those are your colors to start with. Okay? Those are your colors to start with before you throw something like this. This is a good go-to. This is a great combination, and this looks fantastic. But if you go to the store, all the purple's gone, all the green's gone, that's where you start at. If you go to the store and all the pinks are gone, pink. Okay? This is the best way to figure out, because nobody is going to tell you what color they're using. And unless you see somebody bringing in a fish and you're in a combat fishing situation and you can see what's on their leader, that's also how you know. Yeah, and then the other thing to keep in mind is watch those tide times. I'd say about anywhere between half an hour to about 2 hours after your high tide times. That's usually when the fish come in, if you're close down to the ocean or the river. Helpful tip right there. Yeah, I'm not. This is simple. This is easy. This is super effective, and I enjoy drift fishing. It works. It works, guys. It just works. All right. Well, take care, guys. I know this video probably isn't going to be helpful till next fall. But I just wanted to throw this out there to give you guys an idea and help some of you guys out. Alright, take care, guys. See you later. And remember, fish around and find out.